Hey, welcome to the tutorial on Pally tanking basics from bybaylor.com. Today we will cover the basic mechanics of Pally tanking, including def cap, rotation, basic pulling strategies, line of sight, and marking. Since there are so many strategies on tanking, please take the tips given in this tutorial as insightful suggestion as opposed to hardcore fact. This being said, let's get started. In order to become uncrittable by mobs and ensure survivability when tanking multiple targets, one needs to acquire a defense cap of 540 defense in raids and 535 for heroics. The stats below defense are dodge, parry, and block. The sum of these three stats added together give the tank's sum for total avoidance. Certain tanks like to stack dodge, while others stack block for damage increase through the use of Holy Shield. Now let's take a look at rotation. Protection paladins use a 6-9-6-9 rotation. This means the tank will alternate the use of abilities that have cooldowns of 6 seconds with ones that have cooldowns of an average of 9 seconds. In effect, this allows for the maximizing of global cooldowns and therefore maximizes damage and threat. The top three abilities are the ones with 6-second cooldowns. They are Hammer of Righteous, Shield of Righteousness, and Hammer of Wrath. On the bottom are the three 9-second abilities. These are Consecration, Holy Shield, and Judgment of Wisdom. One might notice that these abilities actually have 8 and 10-second cooldowns. For the purposes of maintaining a consistent use of global cooldowns, these abilities are rounded up. Some tanks like to make 2 macros that spam and alternate these cast sequences of both 6 and 9-second abilities. While simplifying the matter, the use of these macros limits choice and adaptability for threat and aggro. Instead of showing these macros, 2 different types of 6-9-6-9 openings will be shown. These will demonstrate the efficiency of 6-9-6-9 openings on single target mobs, 2+ mobs, and a third rotation will be shown for 5+ mobs. For basic tanking, all rotation should be preceded by the use of Avenger's Shield. This ability has the longest range, most threat, and can hit up to 3 targets. Let's take a look at a basic single target pull. On a single target, the most efficient opening for a 6-9-6-9 rotation should have the cast sequence of Avenger's Shield, Shield of Righteousness, Holy Shield, Judgment, and Consecrate. One may notice by looking at the numbers that instead of casting Judgment, the tank cast Hammer of the Righteous. Notice the difference in damage when Judgment is finally cast. While not too different, if spec'd with Glyph of Judgment, this makes the ability slightly better than Hammer of the Righteous. Next we'll take a look at the 6-9-6-9 rotation in a situation with 2+ mobs. When dealing with 2+ mobs, the proper cast sequence opening should be Avenger's Shield, Hammer of the Righteous, Holy Shield, Shield of Righteousness, and Consecrate. Because of the increase in the number of mobs, Hammer of the Righteous becomes the top priority for damage and threat, especially with 3 or 4 mobs. The reason why Holy Shield is chosen over Consecration is that it boosts shield block to help with the damage intake while simultaneously dealing damage. However, on 5+ mobs, Consecrate takes priority because it is an active way of generating threat on all mobs versus a passive way like Holy Shield. If for some reason a mob in a 5+ pool was not properly aggroed, Consecration would give better chances of keeping aggro than Holy Shield. This is the suggested opening rotation for a 5+ pull. Avenger's Shield, Consecration, Hammer of the Righteous, Holy Shield, and Shield of Righteousness or Judgment. Notice that this time the 6-9 rotation starts with a 9-second ability. This is because on 5+ mobs, Consecration takes priority over Hammer of the Righteous. This is because the maximum number of mobs that Hammer of the Righteous can target is 4. However, after starting with a 9-second ability, the 6-9-6-9 rotation resumes. Next we will talk about LOS or line of sight pulling. Line of sight pulling is a technique that tanks use to corral a group of mobs that is difficult to control because there are ranged and or casters in the group. It is also used to isolate a group of mobs from other mobs in the same room to prevent aggroing the whole room. In Utgard Keep, there's an example of an LOS pull used to corral range and melee mobs together. Notice the caster mob in the distance and how far apart these mobs are apart from each other. By using Avenger's Shield, the paladin is able to gain aggro on one of the mobs and thus all of the mobs. He then turns, runs, hides behind a pillar, and consecrates so that he can corral all the mobs. With an actual party, one should actually have the party wait behind the LOS point. In Drakthar Keep, there is an example of using an LOS pool to isolate mobs from each other. In this room, there are 2 patrolling abominations. To prevent pulling both abominations, and possibly the room, the tank uses LOS on the closer abomination and only pulls one group out of the room. One should also be aware that LOS can work against the party as well. If a healer loses line of sight on the tank cannot receive heals. Next, let's talk about marking. Marking is the most efficient way for a tank to organize the order that mobs should be attacked and crowd controlled. However, many tanks do not make use of the in-game shortcuts designed to make marking quick and easy. In the escape menu, one will find the sub-menu titled Key Bindings. As one scrolls down the page, towards the very end, there will be a section called Raid Targeting. Here one can assign hotkeys for marking targets. For quick marking, only skull through triangle need to be assigned. Standard attack order is generally skull, then X, square, moon, and finally triangle. For crowd control, moon is usually a mage target for sheep, square is usually a target for hunters frost trap, and X is a rogue sap. After targets are downed, it is a good idea to mark the next targets mid-combat. This is helpful with pats and fast run situations. The advantage of having hotkeys set up for marking is that one doesn't have to right-click on the target's icon to select a mark from the menu. Another helpful situation for the use of hotkeys is marking on the go. One can see that the instant a mob appeared, the tank is able to immediately mark it. This helps to speed up the time it takes to down a mob that is potentially dangerous to a party. Thank you for watching this tutorial on Pally tanking basics. If anyone has any questions or comments, as always, please feel free to post.